Equifax's data breach.
The Equifax breach.
Credit reporting company Equifax.
State rating agency Equifax.
Have you ever heard of a company called Equifax? You might have seen their logo when applying for a new credit card or taking out a car loan or mortgage. They're one of the 3 largest credit bureaus in the world, alongside Experian and TransUnion, and they're in charge of determining your credit worthiness. Given their role in the market, I don't think you'd be surprised to hear that Equifax deals with a significant amount of sensitive data, like name, age, date of birth, address, phone number, annual income, and social security number. This has made Equifax a prime target for hackers and cyber terrorists looking to commit identity theft and credit card fraud. Now, I'm sure that Equifax tries their best to protect this information given that their company's reputation is on the line. But unfortunately, their efforts weren't quite enough. In September of 2017, Equifax announced a groundbreaking data breach that affected a mind-boggling 147 million people. And given the nature of their business, the data being leaked wasn't your cat pictures or YouTube subscriptions. It was your financial profile. It was the names of 147 million people, the date of births of 147 million people, the social security numbers of 146 million people, and so much more. This data breach was so large that if you're an American and watching this video, it's more likely that you were affected than it is that you weren't affected. Here's the thing, the US population stands at 330 million people, out of which 22.3% are under 18. This means that only 256 million Americans were even capable of having data saved with Equifax. And yes, I know that teenagers under 18 can have a credit file, but that's extremely rare. So out of this 256 million Americans, 146 million had their SSNs leaked. In other words, if you were an American adult in 2017 and had any sort of credit history, there's over a 55% chance that your SSN was leaked through this data breach. And even if yours wasn't leaked, it's highly likely that you know someone whose was, and that's just in America. This data breach also affected 15.2 million people in the UK and 19,000 Canadians. But how did such a catastrophic data breach even materialize, and what can you do if you were affected? Taking a look back, the story of this data breach dates back to December of 2016, months before the breach actually took place. At the time, a security researcher looked into the servers and websites of Equifax, and he noticed something strange. It appeared that everyday people had access to some sort of employee site, and you didn't even need credentials to access it. One of the portals on the site had search fields, and you could search through the personal data of Equifax customers. All you had to do was put in a search term and get millions of results just instantly. And that was just the beginning of it. The researcher also found that it was extraordinarily easy to get shell access to several Equifax servers. Additionally, they also uncovered multiple vulnerabilities such as SQL injection. While these were all major security risks, on the bright side, they were also very easy to patch. Equifax could have taken down the employee portals in minutes, and they could have patched the server flaws within a week. And Equifax even had the opportunity to do exactly this, given that the researcher reached out to them. But as you would guess, Equifax didn't do that, at least not quick enough according to the researcher. This security researcher wasn't the only one that was tipping off Equifax either. A few months later, in March of 2017, the US Department of Homeland Security would reach out to Equifax regarding the need to patch some of their software. Given that this notice was literally coming from the US government and not some security researcher, Equifax would immediately take action. Just one day following the notice, Equifax would notify their cybersecurity personnel about the need to upgrade their Apache Struts software. Within just 48 hours, they would apparently patch the bugs. And about a week later, the security department would even run scans to verify that the bugs were patched, and the scans apparently revealed no vulnerabilities. But for some reason, none of these efforts actually patched the bugs. To be honest, it appears to me that Equifax cared more about putting down on paper that they responded quickly to the government notice than they cared about actually fixing the bug. But that's just my own speculation. Anyway, regardless of why the bug wasn't patched, the bottom line is that it wasn't patched. And this opened up the perfect opportunity for hackers to strike. About 2 months later, on May 13, 2017, attackers would begin accessing sensitive personal data using this bug. And it wasn't just a one-time thing either. They would consistently access sensitive data for the next 2.5 months. It wasn't until July 29th that Equifax's security department would finally notice suspicious network traffic. Equifax would of course patch the bug for real this time almost instantaneously, but the damage had already been done. Initially, Equifax had no idea about the magnitude or depth of the data breach. In the words of the CEO himself, "I certainly did not know that personal identifying information had been stolen, or have any indication of the scope of this attack." Nonetheless, Equifax would go ahead and get their lawyers on board and follow their data breach protocol. One of the first steps in this protocol was to complete a thorough forensic investigation. And let's just say that it didn't take long for this investigation to reveal some terrible news. By August 11th, it was clear to Equifax that this wasn't just some small leak. It appeared that hackers had accessed entire databases, and the data being stolen was spread across a multitude of data tables, which made it especially hard to link the stolen data with individual customers. This is one of the main reasons that it took Equifax so long to publicly announce the data breach. But eventually, by September 4th, the investigative team would put together a comprehensive list of 143 million victims. And on September 7, 2017, Equifax would publicly announce exactly what happened. As you would guess, the reaction was not pretty. Equifax stock would crater nearly 40% within a matter of days, and the public would become more aware of the company than ever before. Interest in Equifax literally exploded 20x in the days following the public announcement. But almost as quickly as the drama unfolded, the drama wrapped up. By the end of 2017, interest in Equifax returned to their normal non-existent levels. The stock took longer to recover, but that too would return to all-time highs within 2 years. In fact, since then, Equifax stock has grown as much as 102%. Somehow, Equifax has been able to live this down with extremely low levels of backlash from the general public. And I think the main reason for this is that the average person did not have strong opinions about Equifax going into the drama. Imagine if this same thing happened with Facebook, who people already associate with the data intrusion. We'd literally have riots on social media, even though the data leaked by Facebook would probably be less sensitive. This isn't to say that Equifax didn't receive any backlash at all. However, the backlash that they did receive was rather short-lived, and people forgot about it pretty quickly. And given that the public wasn't really holding Equifax accountable, it was up to Equifax themselves and regulators to take action. Much of Equifax's leadership would either leave voluntarily or be forced out. Equifax's Chief Information Officer, Chief Security Officer, and CEO would all retire within a few weeks after the public announcement. It appears that these guys preferred to take the easy way out. In terms of the FTC, they would eventually settle with Equifax for $575 million to $700 million, depending on how many people actually claim damages. While this is definitely a hefty fine for government standards, it's not too bad from Equifax's perspective. After all, Equifax makes more than that on an annual basis. So they were only set back 1 year, even though they leaked the data of literally half of American adults. Clearly, Equifax was able to get away with a small slap on the wrist, but the same could not be said about the victims. Ironically, one of the first problems that victims faced was due to Equifax once again. You see, shortly after the breach became public, Equifax created a website where people could claim losses. This was definitely the right thing to do, but unfortunately, Equifax didn't do it correctly. Instead of creating a portal under their official domain Equifax.com, Equifax decided that it would be a great idea to create a new domain just for claims called EquifaxSecurity2017.com. To this day, I have no idea why they decided to do this. Maybe it was to distance the claims from their main website, I'm not sure. But what I am sure about is that this new domain was a terrible choice. First of all, it made it hard for people to tell whether they were on the official website. And this led to the rise of several scam websites with similar domains. Even Equifax's own support team was confused. And at one point, they were directing consumers to one of these fake websites themselves. This is clearly not a great look, but on the bright side, correctly claiming damages with Equifax could result in a payout as high as $20,000. The initial claim window closed up at the beginning of 2020. but an extended claim window is still open until January of 2024. The average victim will obviously not be paid anywhere near $20,000. But if you had any sort of credit file in 2017 or before, it is worth checking out. You may be able to get a few $100s from them. This compensation is of course not worth having your data compromised, but there's also no reason to forego claiming this compensation. Also, you'll probably get a much better idea as to how much data was stolen from you, if any. Aside from offering claims, Equifax also rolled out a couple of goodwill programs shortly after the fiasco. For example, they offered victims free credit monitoring services for 4 years. Now, you might be saying, why would anyone want to give Equifax any more data given their history? And that is a fair point. But you can look at it from a different perspective as well. Given what happened to Equifax, it's likely that they're more keen on cybersecurity than ever before. They've apparently invested $1.5 billion into technology and security since 2018. So you would hope that things are different. But then again, Experian and TransUnion probably also buffed up their security after this incident. So it may be better to just stick with them instead. If we learned anything from this incident, it's that the biggest threats to our privacy may not be as straightforward as Google or Facebook. Background financial companies like credit bureaus, lenders, and underwriters have more sensitive data about all of us than big tech does. Yet, they receive virtually no criticism because we don't interact with them on a regular basis, and them collecting this data is seen as an essential part of their business. But the only way that we can get these institutions to take on more accountability is by shining the spotlight on them, just like we've been doing with big tech. Apple's Ask Not to Track feature was a game changer, and the main reason that came to fruition is thanks to all the attention surrounding big tech data collection. If there was more attention surrounding the credit space, consumers may get more choice there as well. For example, when we apply for a credit card with Amex, we might be able to choose which credit bureau they use to run our credit. By implementing such features, we may be able to prevent future instances of complacency from occurring. But that's just what I think. Did you know about this massive data leak from Equifax? Comment that down below. Also, drop a like if you think these companies need to be held more accountable. And of course, consider checking out our Discord community to suggest future video ideas and consider subscribing to see more questions logically answered. But until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.